This is the Huawei P40 Pro, the smartphone with the most impressive camera I've ever used on a phone. And this is our high-end DSLR camera, which combined with the lens and the adapter that actually supports the lens costs more than £3,000. So Huawei reached out and they wanted to sponsor a challenge video with the P40 Pro. And it was up to us to create something unique. So we had full creative freedom here. So I was thinking, since the P40 Pro has the most advanced camera on any smartphone for photos, how would it actually stack up against, our actual high-end DSLR camera? Now, since I wanted this test to be fair, I've asked Harry, our video creative and 3D concept designer, to go out and take these shots and send them to me without telling me which one is which. And then I have to pick which shot I prefer, after which I'll see the reveal at the same time as you guys after every single shot. It will be my live reaction, so there's no script to this video. So yeah, just make sure that you grab a pen and a paper, or simply just take the notes on your smartphone as to which shot you prefer, and then at the end of this video, you will see exactly how many points you have for each of these devices and which one you actually prefer. And definitely leave a comment at the end of this video as to which one you ended up choosing. We have 19 different test categories, all of them with multiple tests, and there we go, these are all the categories. So sit back, relax, definitely grab some popcorn and that pen and paper or your smartphone and enjoy. Okay, so starting off with section number 1, normal shots outdoors. We have 4 photos here, so in terms of the first one, well, I definitely prefer the one on the left. It's more vibrant, it's brighter, it's also sharper if you zoom in. So yeah, I definitely prefer the one on the left. So take some notes, let me know which one you prefer, left or right. And now let's take a look at the actual reveal. So the one on the left was actually the P40 Pro. Like I expected actually, but I'll explain why at the end of the video. But there we go, the P40 Pro has way more dynamic range and better processing than the DSLR, at least in this photo. Okay, moving on to the second photo. Here they both look almost identical. Interesting. Now, the one on the right is definitely more vibrant. However, this time, the one on the left is actually sharper. So I think in this case, I would actually go with the one on the left. Yeah, it's definitely sharper if you zoom in. So yeah, that's my pick. Okay, this time, the one on the left was the DSLR. Those are, by the way, random, so they're always going to be a bit different. And the one on the right was the P40 Pro. So far I have 1 point for each. Also, I have to mention all of these photos are straight off of the cameras with auto mode enabled, so they haven't been edited in any way. And moving on to the third one, wow, okay, now we have a pretty big difference between these two photos. I definitely prefer the one on the right. So the sky is perfectly visible, whereas on the left it's fully blown out. The image, maybe that's just me, seems to be sharper. Yeah, it seems to be sharper on the right, a tiny bit. So yeah, definitely the one on the right. And now, okay, so I did expect this. P40 Pro was the one on the right. DSLR was the one on the left. So we actually have 2 points, 2 picks for the P40 Pro. But again, don't mind me, just simply take your own notes and maybe you'll pick something different. Okay, and we have one more, the final outdoors regular shot. So in this case, they're actually very similar. So the one on the right is sharper, it's also brighter, it's a tiny bit more vibrant. However, the sky is a bit more blown out. So I think I would still go with the one on the right. I don't know, there's something about it, an aura that I really like about it. So yeah, one on the right is my choice. Okay, interesting. So the one on the right is the DSLR. The P40 Pro was the one on the left. Interesting, right, so far we have 2 points for each, at least in my case. Okay, moving on to some indoor shots. We only have 2 shots here, so in this first one, definitely the one on the right. It's much sharper, it's fully in focus. The one on the left was a bit blurry if you take a look at the tables. So yeah, definitely the one on the right. Okay, and now let's take a look at the reveal. Oh, okay, I was not expecting this. So the P40 Pro is the sharp one. I could have, okay, interesting. And the DSLR is the one that was autofocus and a bit blurry. Again, this was all on auto. Right, so I was honestly not expecting this one to be this way. So in that case, we have 3 points for the P40 Pro and 2 points for a DSLR. Oh, and by the way, the whole idea of this test is just to see how close the P40 Pro can actually get to our DSLR camera. So it would be really interesting if the P40 Pro actually wins this. let's see. So we have one more indoor shot, and here I do prefer the one on the left. So it's brighter, it's also sharper. Again, the one on the right, it's not really that in focus. So let's see which one was which. Okay, the P40 Pro was the one on the left, and the DSLR was the one on the right again. So one more point for the P40 Pro. If you have different choices, by the way, then definitely mark those down. Okay, next up, we have a very interesting test. So I want to see which one of these devices has a better dynamic range. So we've actually shot different photos in RAW, which means that they're actually unprocessed by the camera. And I really want to see which one is more recoverable. So I want to see how much you can actually push the shadows and the highlights and how much detail you can actually recover from a RAW photography, which is something that if you're a professional photographer and if you want to use manual mode, this is something that's going to be very, very useful. Okay, so these are the two images, as you can see. When it comes to which one looks better unedited, yes, this one looks way, way better. So let's try and edit this a bit. So let me just try and increase the shadows as much as I can. You can see that in this case, the image actually starts falling apart, yeah, fairly easily. We don't want to really touch the highlights that much, but I really want to try and push the shadows. I want to increase those and see how much detail I can actually recover. So I managed to get a lot of the detail back, but yeah, it's not looking that great. Now let's take a look at the other one. Wow, okay. Holy smokes, you can probably tell that the difference is just gigantic. So I managed to recover a lot of detail. Take a look at this. Photo number 1 and photo number 2. Yeah, it just doesn't compare. So this one is definitely my choice. Now let's press the info button and see which one this was. Okay, right. So this was the DSLR, right? And this was the P40 Pro. I mean, to be honest, it's not that bad for the P40 Pro, but yeah, when it comes to dynamic range, you just cannot compete with a proper DSLR camera. Okay, so far, the DSLR has 3 points and the P40 Pro still has 4 points, if I didn't mess up the counting. Now, next up we have some macro shots, so let's take a look at this one. Okay, so in this one, if you zoom in, the one on the right seems to be quite a bit more detailed. So yeah, I also preferred the depth of field on the one on the right and the colors. So the one on the right is actually my choice. Now let's take a look and see which one was which. Okay, so the one on the right was the DSLR, P40 Pro was the one on the left. So yeah, we have 4 points on both. Now let's move on to the zoom section, and here, well, this is really, really, really interesting. So definitely the one on the right. Now in terms of the zoom, essentially we tried to get the exact same zoom level on both. The lens on the camera is an 18 to 35 millimeters, so we have about 2x optical zoom, whereas the P40 Pro has about 3x optical and 5x hybrid. Now, in terms of which one looks better, definitely the one on the right. And I don't know why I have a feeling that that's actually the P40 Pro. So yeah, that is the P40 Pro. Okay, really interesting. Obviously on DSLR, you can just put a different lens if you want, but that's gonna be crazy expensive, especially if you want to get one of those high-end telephoto modules that have like 10x or even more optical zoom. Those are gonna be like 800 pounds or even essentially the price of the whole phone. So yeah, that's pretty cool. 5 points for the P40 Pro for the DSLR so far. Moving on to the wide angle shot. Again, this really depends on what lens you have in your DSLR, but what's really cool about a smartphone is that you can have multiple lenses. I mean, you have multiple lenses and then you can instantly switch between those. So in this case, we zoomed all the way down on or out on the DSLR, and then we used the wide angle module on the phone. Now I can probably guess that the phone, the P40 Pro, is the one on the left because it's way more zoomed out, so I'm guessing that's the case. But if we take a look at just the quality of the image in general, the one on the left definitely has a much better exposure in general of the sky. It's not really that blown out as it is on the right. Now, again, I'm assuming that the P40 Pro is the one on the left. And yeah, the P40 Pro was the one on the left, so in that case we have 6 points for the P40 Pro. Interesting. Moving on to the panorama test. Now, when it comes to our camera, it doesn't really have a built-in panorama mode. So what we did is we took the same shots as on the P40 Pro, and then we merged those in Lightroom. And I haven't seen any of these shots before, so this is literally my first time seeing those. And okay, in this case, they're both very, very good. So they're both almost identical. Wow. I would say the one at the top looks better just because it's sharper. So I would personally go with the one on the top, which I'm assuming is the DSLR. So let's see, the one on the top was the DSLR, there you go. So just because we had way more resolution from all those photos. So in that case, The DSLR takes 1 more point, but keep in mind that this was a pretty long process. We took the photos, imported those into Photoshop. So yeah, you need a few more tools, whereas on the P40 Pro, you just take a panorama in like 5 seconds and that's it. Okay, moving on to video. We have 4K 60 video on both of these. And let's see, the one on the left, so the one on the right is definitely sharper. I don't like the colors on the right, so I think the color processing and the image processing is much better on the left. For some reason, the one on the left is choppy. Like they're both 4K 60, but the one on the left is way choppier for whatever reason. So I honestly think that the one on the left is the DSLR, and the one on the right is the P40 Pro. But let me take a look if I was right. Yeah, I was right. So yeah, the one that was a bit choppy was actually the DSLR. I think it was probably because of the weight, because it's much heavier to handle. Yeah, okay. Interesting. So P40 Pro takes this one, but a DSLR actually had better colors, in my opinion, than the P40 Pro. Moving on to slow motion, this is quite an interesting one because the DSLR can go up to 180 frames per second in 1080p, whereas the P40 Pro can go up to 7,680 frames per second. So it's probably going to be very easy to tell which one is which, but yeah, there you go. P40 Pro is definitely the one on the left because it's way slower. I do like the quality on the DSLR, so as you can tell, it's just way sharper, way cleaner. But if you care about slow motion, then the P40 Pro is going to be a better choice here. And there you go, P40 Pro on the left, DSLR on the right. I'm gonna go with, yeah, it's like a draw here. It depends on what you care about the most. But since it's slow motion, I'm guessing you would care about the actual slow motion part and not necessarily the, the quality. So I would pick the P40 Pro here. Okay, moving on to stabilization. So this is stabilization when walking. And so what's really interesting about the P40 Pro is that it has stabilization through the lens, and then it's also done through software. Whereas I was about to say the name, the DSLR has stabilization on the sensor, on the lens, and in software. So the DSLR should be much better. Now, from what I can tell, I think, let me just quickly check. I think, yeah, so the one on the left is definitely better. It's not significantly better. There's a bit of an up and down wobble on the one to the right. Also, the image processing is much better. But what I don't like on the one on the left is that it's like a mechanical, yeah, so when you're walking, it kind of switches just way too abruptly, which I don't really like. Feels like a mechanical switch. Okay, so the P40 Pro was the one on the left, and the DSLR was the one on the right. I don't know, I don't really like... Yeah, I think stabilization overall is better on the P40 Pro, but it's just that it just jumps so badly. So I will have to give this to the DSLR. So that's 8 points and 6 points. Now, what about stabilization when running? So let's take a look at this. So in this case, let's see, the one, holy smokes, this is when running. Wow. The one on the left is like, it's like you're standing still. Holy smokes, that's gigantic. Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's a massive difference. I'm guessing that's the P40 Pro. Let me take a look at the results. Yeah, P40 Pro was on the left. So when running, I would actually give this to the P40 Pro. Much better. As long as you're not just switching from left to right, then yeah, P40 Pro is way better. So what about autofocusing speed? So let's take a look. Okay, pretty big difference. The one on the right is just so much faster. Holy smokes. Now, our DSLR is a very well-known DSLR in terms of focusing issues. So it's very good in terms of the quality, but you probably know which one it is. Yeah, so the one on the right, I would say, is definitely the P40 Pro. Let me take a look at the results. And yeah, there you go. The one on the right was the P40 Pro, and the one on the left was, as expected, the DSLR. Next up, we have the time-lapse test. Now, luckily, both of these devices actually have a time-lapse mode enabled. And they're both 4K, which the P40 Pro is actually the only phone that does 4K time-lapses. And our camera is one of the few cameras that has a time-lapse mode, so there you go. Now, in terms of the quality, let's see. So this was a 5-minute time-lapse, by the way. I do prefer the one on the left in terms of the contrast. I will have to edit the one on the right, but in terms of the actual sharpness, the one on the right is sharpest. It's a very tricky one. It depends on if I want to edit the footage or if I just want to use it as it is. I think overall, I would probably still go with the one on the right and slightly tweak the colors. Obviously, this really depends on your taste. Yeah, so DSLR was the one on the right. So in that case, DSLR has 7 points, P40 Pro has 10 points, so the P40 Pro is actually leading. Interesting. Okay, next up we have portrait mode. So since I haven't seen those shots, I'm not in the shots, but Ren is apparently. And this is interesting, portrait mode, wow. So I definitely do prefer the one on the right in terms of the blur, as in the subject is way more separated, but the one on the left looks more natural. You don't get as much depth of field, but it's way more natural. So I'm guessing the one on the right is the P40 Pro, and the one on the left is the camera. I'm guessing. Let me just take a look at the results. Yeah, P40 Pro on the right, DSLR on the left. So I don't know. It's a strange one. I think if I care about that bokeh, I would go for the P40 Pro. On a DSLR, obviously, you can have different lenses. So I think in this case, I'm gonna go with the P40 Pro. If you have a different, again, don't mind my results. Just mark down what do you think, what have you picked for each of those cases. Okay, next up we have the big one. We have some low light tests, which is going to be very, very interesting because obviously the DSLR has a much bigger sensor, whereas the P40 Pro has night mode and a lot of AI processing. So let's take a look at the first image here. So in terms of this one, okay, it depends on how you put it. So the one on the right is much sharper. I'm guessing that's a DSLR. The one on the left is really good. So the image processing is much better. If I had to pick, I think I would go for the one on the right, just because it's way more natural to how it probably looked. Again, I wasn't even there. But yeah, there we go. DSLR is the one on the right. P40 Pro is the one on the left. So in that case, we have 8 points on the DSLR. So the DSLR is catching up versus 11 points on the P40 Pro. Okay, holy smokes, wow. Jesus, this is a gigantic difference. So another shot, obviously, I would be guessing that the one on the right is the P40 Pro with that night mode, which makes everything look like almost day. And the DSLR is the one on the left. That would be my guess. And yeah, there we go. P40 Pro, the one on the right. I don't know, in this one, it's a bit of a tricky one because I feel like the P40 Pro has literally overdone it. The DSLR is more natural, but I feel like something in between would have been perfect. So, you know what? I'm not going to pick one this time. I don't know. I don't like either for different reasons. So I'm not going to give any points to anyone in this case. But we do have 2 more shots. So in terms of this one right here, yeah, pretty much the same story. So the one on the left is way, way processed. The one on the right is just, it's not really that sharp. It's way more natural. I think I would go with the one on the right in this case, which I'm assuming is the DSLR. Yeah, so one on the right was DSLR, and the one on the left was the P40 Pro. So DSLR has 9 points, P40 Pro has 11 points. And we have one more low light shot. So let's take a look at this. Okay, right, so this is a bit closer. So I would go, the one on the right is quite out of focus or blurry. It's just not, it's okay, you know, a bit noisy. I do prefer the one on the left. So definitely the one on the left, which I think is the P40 Pro. Let me just open up the results. Yeah, P40 Pro was the one on the left. Interesting. So in that case, P40 Pro has 12 points, DSLR has 9. Okay, next up we have a very interesting one. So similar to the RAW test that we've done before, in this one, we're doing a max ISO test. So both of these devices, I believe when recording video, they have a max ISO of 25,600. So we're actually going to essentially test the same ISO levels between both of these and see which one has a better ISO performance. So in terms of the first one right here, this one's pretty good. So I'm assuming that's the max ISO, right? So that's pretty good. Oh, it goes even higher, right? Okay, that's pretty clean. I do like that. Yeah, that's nice. Okay, so it actually goes, yeah, it goes crazy bright. Yeah, pretty big difference. It goes even brighter. Okay. So I do like this first one. Now, in terms of the second one, yeah, second one is good. It's not as good. I would say that the first one was probably the DSLR, and the second one was the P40 Pro. So yeah, there we go. DSLR at 100 ISO. Yeah, DSLR up to 12,800 actually. That was the highest. And the P40 Pro could actually go to 25,600. But in terms of the actual ISO performance, it was significantly better on the DSLR. As expected, it has a much larger sensor. So DSLR gets 1 point. We have 12 on the P40 Pro and 10 on the DSLR. Okay, we have just a few more and we're done. Let's see, low light tripod. Essentially what we're trying to do was trying to do an astrophotography test, but there were no stars. You know, we're based in the UK, so the sky was quite cloudy, but they both did this tripod mode, the long exposure mode, when they were placed on a tripod. And in this case, in this first one, I do prefer the one on the right. It's much better. I don't know, it's brighter. It's not as sharp as the one on the left. So let's see, the one on the right was the P40 Pro. Okay, so P40 Pro gets 1 more point. We have 13 versus 10. And we have one more low light tripod photo. Wow, okay. Okay, pretty big difference between the two. So pretty much the same story here. The one on the left is nicer overall, but the one on the right is just sharper. So I think in this case, I think the one on the left is a bit too extreme. I do prefer the one on the right overall. So I'm gonna go with that one. Let me take a look at the results. So the one on the right was the DSLR. Next up, we have some low light zoom shots. Let's take a look at this. I'm assuming, okay, pretty big difference between the two. So the one on the left is significantly brighter. The one on the right is significantly dimmer, but sharper. Hey, you can read the text on the one on the left easier. So it really depends on, you know, the kind of thing that you're trying to capture. Personally, I think I would go with the one on the left. Yeah, but again, it really depends. So it's a bit of a tricky one. I think that's the P40 Pro. Yeah, P40 Pro. So, you know, it's very unnatural, but if you're just trying to get some detail and to, I don't know, read some signs or whatever, then P40 Pro is going to be better. And then we have the second zoom shot, and in this case, I do prefer the one on the right in this case, which is, let me just open up the results, which is the P40 Pro. So P40 Pro gets 1 more point in that case. Okay, next up we have the low light video, which I'm assuming the DSLR should perform much better in this case because we have a much bigger sensor. So yeah, the one on the right is just better, lots of noise, but it's not too bad. The one on the left isn't too bad. This was almost pitch black, and I believe the one on the right is the DSLR. Let me just take a look at the results. Yeah, the one on the right was the DSLR. So we have 1 point for the DSLR. We have 12 and 15. And finally, we have the final test, which is a microphone test between the two. And I'll let you guys listen and decide which one has a better microphone.
And this is an example of speech on the Huawei P40 Pro. I'm just going to say random words and you'll hear them and pick them up, and if it sounds good to you, let us know. And this is a test of the high-end DSLRs, of DSLR sounds. If it sounds good, let us know about that instead.
Holy smokes. Okay, interesting. So it seems like the P40 Pro has significantly better built-in microphones. You could, yeah, wow, holy smokes, yeah. This was an interesting video. And there you go. We have 16 points for the P40 Pro, the final results, and 12 points for the DSLR. I'm a bit surprised. So the whole idea was just seeing how close the P40 Pro can actually get to our DSLR camera. But in the end, I ended up picking the P40 Pro more than the DSLR shots. So let me know in the comments, which one did you guys pick the most? Was it the DSLR? Was it the P40 Pro? And you're probably wondering, why is this? Why is the P40 Pro better than a DSLR camera? Well, long story short, budget. You know, when Huawei makes a £1,000 phone, or any company, this will sell way more units than this camera will. Even though this is 3 times the price, this will sell way more than this will. Meaning that Huawei has a much bigger budget to put into R&D. Meaning that you can have a much better processor and image processing inside this phone than you can have in a high-end DSLR camera. I think this pretty much shows that if you are the kind of person that just likes to take photos like this, like you just point and shoot, honestly, just get a smartphone. Don't think about a DSLR camera. Only think about a DSLR camera if you're the kind of person that likes to go into manual mode and tweak the images and, you know, edit those photos afterwards in Lightroom. In that case, a DSLR is a better choice. As you have seen from that dynamic range test, the raw image processing. In that case, yes, a DSLR is better, but if you don't care about doing any video editing or any photo editing in that case, simply stick to a smartphone. You'll be impressed. Now, before I end this video, if you're thinking of buying a P40 Pro, but you're concerned about how on earth are you going to use all of your apps now that Google services are not supported anymore, Well, one of the options has been Phone Clone, Huawei's tool that could transfer most of your apps from your old phone onto your brand new Huawei phone, even apps that were not available in Huawei's App Gallery store. But now we have a second option from Huawei, which I think is even better, and it's called Petal Search Find Apps. So initially I thought that this is just a search bar, widgets that you put on your home screen, and you can search your local apps. But it's actually something completely different and probably one of my favorite things about the P40 Pro now. Essentially, Petal Search Find Apps is a tool that allows you to quickly find the apps that you need. Yes, even apps that are not on Huawei's App Gallery store just yet. So for example, I can search for Instagram and get a direct link to download and install the APK. And not only that, but I can even search for things such as Spotify and essentially download and install everything that I need. It's free to download from Huawei's App Gallery store, and it's honestly the easiest and the fastest way for you to get pretty much any app that you need on your brand new P40 Pro. So yeah, thank you for watching. This was a very interesting project. I've had a lot of fun just seeing those photos, and I'm guessing Harry had even more fun taking those. So at the end of the day, a phone can actually replace a DSLR. In some cases, it can actually do a better result than a DSLR can. So let me know in the comments what you guys think about, all of this. And also let me know which one you ended up picking the most. So thank you for watching. Thanks to Huawei for, again, making this project possible. I'm Daniel. This has been Zone of Tech, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Zone of Tech, signing out. Cheers.